Welcome back, everyone. We're joined now by Katrina Carter and Jerry Evans. Both work for the Department of Corrections. Thank you so much for being here. Katrina is the Director of Reentry and Treatment Services, and Jerry is the Director of the 5th Judicial District. So we want to have a conversation today about reentry programs and how that whole process works for an inmate in Iowa to get back into our society. So a little bit of background about why we're talking about this. So we're talking about this in the wake of the death of ISU golfer Theliar Barquina Rosamena, who was stabbed to death on a golf course in broad daylight. And Colin Richards is charged with her murder. Richards has a criminal history. He was released from the Mount Pleasant Correctional Facility 3 months before he allegedly killed Theliar. Well, Richards was denied an early release because he did not have a proper living space when he got out. But then, of course, he was released not long after that. So when an inmate is flagged for this kind of a situation, what does the DOC do?
For the reentry process?
Yes. If they're flagged, they don't have a proper place to go, then what can the Department of Corrections do?
Right. From the first onset of a person becoming involved with the criminal justice system, we look at reentry as a philosophy more than a specific program. But in the institutions, we do work very closely with our districts, our community-based corrections, in looking at the challenges that someone might face and looking at different housing authorities, looking at any type of evaluations that they would need, and working, again, closely on that transition plan for success.
I would just add that housing is probably the biggest barrier that the majority of returning citizens face. A number of the people who are eligible to be released from the institutions have nowhere to go. They don't have the money saved up to even find their own place. So, for example, here in Polk County, we operate a men's facility at Fort Des Moines where we can house 240 male clients, and then we have a 48-bed facility for the females. And so we work with them when they get to our facilities to help them find employment, get their assessments done, and then hopefully save up enough money so that they can find their own place and get out on their own.
So does an inmate have to tell you where they plan to go, where they plan to live before they can be released?
Yes, that is a part of, in their border parole release plan, we would identify the site, the release site that they would live.
What other programs are available to these inmates or to these releasees through the Department of Corrections to help them re-enter society in a more successful way?
So in community-based corrections, I kind of described a little bit our work release programs. Right. But once a client comes out, they're assigned a probation officer. They're provided with a risk needs assessment. And so they're meeting with that probation officer either weekly, monthly, depending on their risk level. And that probation officer is working to help them address the barriers that they may have. If it's transportation, we work with DART very closely. Here in Polk County, we work with Evelyn K. Davis Center, St. Vincent de Paul, Goodwill Industries. So there's a number of resources, at least in the urban areas, to assist people making the reentry. I think where we run into our problems is in some of our more rural areas where we don't have a lot of services.
Colin Richards is accused of reoffending after he got out of Mount Pleasant. So how often does reoffending happen, and then what's the process that happens for someone who was an inmate and then continues to reoffend?
Let me just first of all say that our hearts go out to Theliar and her family, or obviously her family. It was horrific to learn of that news, but I guess on the bright side, if you will, the base rates for that type of violence are very low.
Okay.
And predicting violence of that nature is very difficult, but we do stratify risk with the clients that we serve. So we know, for example, through our risk assessments, if somebody has accumulated lengthy criminal history, they're going to receive more intensive services. For example, in Polk County, we have roughly 350 people who fall into the highest risk category. We complete over 500 home visits every month on them. So we get a chance to not only check on compliance when we get into the residence, but we also get to see the environment in which they're living. Also get to know their social supports, get to know their family members. So with those cases, we're going to know pretty soon whether or not they're complying with the conditions of their release. And if they're not, then we're reporting those things either to the parole board or back to the district judge level if they're on probation.
Now, Katrina, we don't have much time left, but tell me what you want people at home to know about this reentry program and what you are doing to make sure that things like this don't happen.
The department's mission is creating opportunities for safer communities. 95 to 97% of people who are incarcerated will be our neighbors. And so what can we do from the moment they are involved with our system? What can we do looking at them individually? What needs do they have? How can we best help them with those needs?
Both of you, thank you very much, not only for being here, but for everything that you do.